Remaking a classic video game is delicate work. Alter the game too much, and you could end up ruining a well-beloved game. Alter the game too little, and players could complain that little work has been done to update and provide a new experience for fans and newcomers. Even though video game remakes have been popular, lucrative endeavors over the past few years, that doesn't mean these have been guaranteed successes, as finding the balance between pleasing die-hard fans and pleasing first-time players is not an easy task. Enter in Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake, which does more to preserve the original rather than change it. While the visuals have certainly been updated, making it look like a modern game, while still keeping the 90s JRPG flair, there's a lot of it that still hasn't been changed. From the game's combat, storytelling, and classic JRPG conventions, Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake struggles to find what elements to preserve and what elements should be left behind. Hi, my name is Jay, and welcome to Good Games Dude. As someone who celebrates old classic video games here on my channel, I'm all for old classic games being remade so that new gamers can experience and understand why these games are so special. In fact, one of my favorite video games of all time is a remake. But that's just my opinion, and it's not a definitive one either, as I'm sure there are many others out there who are pining for new, different experiences, and for game makers not to touch these historic creations. One of my favorite video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII Remake, did receive some criticisms for some of the game's major changes. Whether it be the game's newer, action-focused gameplay or story elements that weren't in the original, I understand why not everyone enjoyed it. But I did. Likewise, I can understand why many probably do enjoy Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake, as a lot of those classic design decisions are still here. Turn-based combats, random battle encounters, 2D sprites, a bare-bones story experience. These are all aspects of the original that are preserved in the remake, and I appreciate the game for that. The original was made at a time when the story was not a main concern, but rather the adventure and atmosphere were. And it was a time when games are demanding and challenging, asking the player to dedicate more to it. But some of those aspects I wish could have been altered, as I think not everything has to be forcefully preserved. As you can tell, this isn't one of my usual glowing reviews that I normally do for other video games. But I hope you allow me to express some of my criticisms for Dragon Quest III Remake, and how I hope it improves upon these areas for the next two installments. Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake is my first Dragon Quest game, and I'm sure there are many others like me. I've heard and know about many of the other entries, so I do know why these games are special. I just never got around to them. And I've also played a fair amount of JRPGs, both old and new, so many of the familiar JRPG tropes in this game aren't exactly new to me. Let's start with the positives, and the obvious one, the visuals. All these years later, and this 2D retro art style is still amazing. Even though this visual design got started with Octopath Traveler back in 2017, it's still amazing how this layout still preserves the classic SNES look from JRPGs like Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, but also revamps the background to still make it look like a modern video game. I'd really like to see Square Enix do a remake of Final Fantasy VI in this style, as it really preserved one of the foundational games of this genre while still making it look new and fresh.
Fair play to you. You done all right making it this far. But if you think you're gonna catch me that easy, you got another thing coming. See ya!
Gameplay cinematics also look amazing, as the camera zooms in and out at key points, and characters are also voiced by great actors. While the story is again very thin, characters receive very little backstory or character development, it's cool to see these characters speaking and to have them emoting very subtly, just like these characters would in the 90s.
Splendid fighting!
Pirid Viznik, you are hero truly.
Hardly.
The actual story is you, the main character, go on a magical adventure collecting artifacts and hidden treasures to take down the mystical enemy known as the Archfiend. Along the way, you'll discover hidden memories of the main character's father, who is also on the same journey to stop the Archfiend, but mysteriously disappeared. Again, it's a very thin narrative that doesn't have any deep narrative themes or characters with overly traumatic pasts, and that's okay. When the original game came out, having a strong narrative wasn't a requirement for video games, and it still isn't. Rather, all that mattered was whether or not there was a fun adventure to be had, and Dragon Quest III does have that, with its storybook-like nature and its amazing score performed by the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra. Switching over to the gameplay side, and this is where this remake gets a little more complicated. Dragon Quest III sports turn-based, random battle encounters. While this might be an issue for some, I really enjoyed it. As I mentioned in my Final Fantasy VI Gaming Essentials video, turn-based combat can be really fun. Players have to make strategic decisions about their approach in combat, and must set priorities on what to take care of first. Do you attack opponents right off the gates? Or do you fortify and buff up your characters and also heal them from whatever damage they take? This aspect is even more amplified as Dragon Quest III requires all actions to be decided before anyone can move. It forces the player to think one step ahead and anticipate whatever the enemy will do instead of reacting to it. The problem with Dragon Quest III is that there are massive difficulty spikes throughout the game, and experience points can be stingily doled out. The game has a system in place where if characters are dead when a battle is complete, the dead characters won't receive any experience points. I get that this is a system that many JRPGs in the past have utilized, but that doesn't make it any more enjoyable and something I wish could be changed. It means that during tough boss battles, rather than feeling like you've overcome a really tough challenge with your last character standing, your victory gets undermined by the rest of your dead characters not receiving the boatload of experience points. A moment you should be celebrating feels like punishment. What happens next is that one or two characters might be at a sufficient level for the next area in the story, but not everyone else. It's like being stuck in a hole that's only getting deeper and deeper as the characters are even less sufficient for the upcoming battles. And when the game opens up, allowing the player to explore different areas and continents, the game doesn't tell the player what level they should be at for these other areas. It can be a frustrating experience to guess, okay, do I go here? Nope. Should I go here? No. It's a matter of explore this area till you get to a certain point, stop and come back later when you're at a higher level. And again, leveling up can sometimes not be easy. Not only do enemies dish out sometimes unfair amounts of experience points, but if you want a full cast of characters with all the different vocations, you'll have to switch those members out constantly and level them up individually. I wish there was an option where I could purchase leveling up items at shops that instantly level up my characters so that the new characters that I just created could come with me to the newer areas I'm exploring and fight alongside me. It can be annoying having to start at level 1 with newer characters and have them be unevenly matched with my level 25 or 30 characters. Yes, you can grind for levels. While some people might be okay with that, grinding mindlessly for hours and hours on end, battling the same opponents over and over, is not my idea of fun. Again, I get this is meant to keep the nostalgic feel of the original games, but I wish there was an option to toggle these features for both modern audiences and old school gamers. Let there be more difficulty options, perhaps one called Modern and another one called Classic, where players can see what levels they should be at for certain areas and where they can get more experience points. And for those who prefer the old way, give them the option to select Classic, where that stuff can be hidden, and make it so leveling up characters is not as easily done, but perhaps leads to better gear. I'll admit when a game just isn't for me, and this is certainly the case. While some diehard JRPG fans will enjoy this old-school style of games, which has little directions and some brutal difficulty spikes, those are some aspects I could easily do without. But if you do enjoy that stuff, then by all means, don't let me diminish your enjoyments. But I do think that this game should provide some more options to allow players to tailor their experience to be something either a little more akin to the classic or something a little more modern. I don't want to make it sound like I hated my time with Dragon Quest III, because I didn't. In fact, I really enjoyed the game. From its beautiful visuals, amazing orchestral score, and fun turn-based combat, there's a lot to love here. But I think there's a lot that can be adjusted, and should be adjusted to make the game more enjoyable and accessible for those who may not know a lot about this series or this genre. Which is why I'm giving Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake my rating of 3 out of 5. My name is Jay, and thank you so much for watching. As always, liking and subscribing really helps my channel out, and come back soon for even more on the best that video games have to offer.